Hi guys, I'm Alice. Welcome to my Women's Health series. Today, I'm going to be investigating how powerful hormones are and if they can alter brain structure. To start with, I'm going to talk to the public. Let's see what they have to say. Okay, so how powerful do you think your hormones are?
I have no idea.
Reasonably. I feel like they can control a lot of things.
Well, I think they're extremely powerful.
I would say they influence a lot.
Yes.
I'm like, where am I in my cycle? I'm like, that makes sense.
Do you think hormones are powerful enough to change your brain structure?
Again, I have no idea.
Yes, I'd imagine so.
Yes, I would say as much.
Brain, I don't know if I've seen the science for that one.
Yeah, I would assume. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm sure there is, I just don't know the answer.
Okay, so some people were quite in touch with how they felt their hormones impacted them, others not so much. I'm now going to talk to Dr. Sarah Mackay, a neuroscientist and expert in women's brain health. Let's see what she has to say. So, to start with, could you just tell me what are hormones?
Now, hormones are molecules which travel through your bloodstream and they can exert different effects on different cells. They can only exert an effect on a cell when they latch onto what we call a receptor. So you've got a molecule and it kind of latches onto a receptor and that triggers a cascade of biological effects in that cell.
So, which hormones are associated with women?
Typically, what we're talking about here are our ovarian hormones. So we're mostly talking about estrogen and progesterone. The ovaries and the brain are in this constant conversation with each other, and that sort of starts at puberty and lasts most of our fertile years, all the way through to menopause when you reach the end of your reproductive life.
Do you think you could tell me a bit more about that conversation between the ovaries and the brain?
From our ovaries, estrogen makes its way through our blood, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and latches on to receptors in our hypothalamus. Our hypothalamus is this part of the brain which is involved with regulating lots of basic body functions, but our menstrual cycle is one of them. That said, there are receptors in the brain and all throughout our body for estrogen, not only in the hypothalamus, but throughout other regions within our brain.
So I've heard that estrogen can have an impact on the structure of neurons in the brain. Could you tell me a bit more about that?
There was a PhD student who was looking at neurons and dendrites on neurons. She noticed as estrogen fluctuated that the little spines on dendrites, they were kind of flourishing and retracting and almost being pruned away as estrogen ebbed and flowed. And that was really the first time anyone described an impact of an ovarian hormone on brain structure. Broadly speaking, across the course of a month, any fluctuations you see in overall brain structure are pretty minimal. Other times in your life, hormones can have like this enormous effect on structure.
I know there's a few significant hormonal events in a woman's life, but today, could you just tell me about the first one? What happens to the brain during adolescence?
All the way kind of from infancy through to early childhood, we see the cortex of the brain getting a bit thicker and the connections within cortex getting much, much, much denser. And then starting at puberty, obviously commencing with sex hormones making their way through body and brain, we start to see the kind of pruning and refinement of a lot of those connections. Overall in a brain, if we were to look at it, we would see like cortex getting sort of slightly thinner during adolescence. And again, that doesn't mean teenagers' brains are degenerating. That means they're refining. As we see these brain changes tracking alongside that, we see a lot of higher order executive functioning skills becoming refined. And we see a lot of social cognition brain structures kind of refining and streamlining, and also structures involved with things like emotional regulation. The social cognition brain structures in particular, I think, are really, really important. So it's almost like the pubertal hormones open up the window for experience-dependent plasticity, and then the experiences we have, and a lot of them are social and high school type learning experiences. That's what kind of sculpts the brain.
It sounds like hormones are quite influential at this time, but there's also a big social and environmental aspect.
Absolutely. It's like a biopsychosocial experience.
Lastly, you've mentioned the concept of neuroplasticity or the brain being in a plastic state. Could you just describe what that means?
So there's lots of kinds of levels in which the biology of neuroplasticity occurs, but essentially in like the broader sense, it means there's some kind of experience driven change in the nervous system, and that persists after the stimulus that produced it.
It seems like hormones are powerful actors, and more so at certain points in our lives. Certain hormones can promote a plastic state in the brain in which it can change structure. But the way in which the brain changes at these times might be dependent on social or environmental factors. Very interesting. Thank you for joining me today. I'll catch you next time.